Okay, I'm clearing up a couple of things about the Amsterdam attack, which has hit the news recently. And I'm going to, in the course of my video, I'm going to be doing violence to this. That got your attention, didn't it? Let's see if I could do it without setting fire to my studio. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing is I have to give some more information about the Arab rescuer of many of the Israeli football fans. And the third is to tell you I've had some interesting posts under my video. Many of them extremely unfriendly, some of them actually insulting. But good. I mean, you keep on coming here, you guys. Keep on making comments. It's wonderful. My figures are going through the roof. I had no idea a video about a spat between a bunch of football hooligans and a bunch of Arab Nazis would become such a popular video. But for those of you who haven't seen it yet, link in the description. Okay, I'm Grannyopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. Okay, well, this is from the New York Times. I thought their report would be best because New York Times, as a rule, is definitely not partisan towards Israel or Jews in general, by the looks of things. So I thought their report would give the other side. Dutch and Israeli officials described the clashes after a soccer match as anti-Semitic. Well, you know, if it says the Israeli officials did it, we have to check the bona fides of that. Before I carry on, I will tell you about the rescuer. He was a Druze, not a Bedouin. That's not to take from the bravery of the Bedouin. That still stands. They were the ones who were trying to protect kids at the Nova Festival in the October 7th raid. But on this occasion, the guy was a member of the Druze community. Now, the Druze have been frequently persecuted by the larger Muslim world, mostly because the larger Muslim world believes that possibly the Druze are not really Muslims, but are faking it. And actually, they may have a point. Anyway, I have a lot of respect for the Druze. They've kept their torch burning through some very difficult circumstances. All right, so it says here, a soccer match between Dutch and Israeli teams in Amsterdam on Thursday night was followed by dozens of arrests after what officials in Israel and the Netherlands describe as anti-Semitic attacks. Now, this is where the Israelis acted badly. I mean, they did act badly. Well, not all of them. There was a contingent of supporters who were your typical and thoroughly despicable football hooligans. Tensions had mounted a day earlier when Israeli fans vandalised a taxi. Now that is awful. And if I had just had that news and not any of the others, I'd have been ripping into them about it if it had been of any importance to you guys watching this. And burnt a Palestinian flag. And this is where you see the New York Times bias. All right, they vandalised a taxi. That is terrible. I'll tell you something else that I heard they did. At the beginning of the game, there was a 1 minute silence for the victims of the Valencia floods, which, by the way, were caused by EU ecological policies to do with decommissioning dams. But yeah, that's another story. So there was a 1 minute silence for them. And this group of the Israelis, not all the Israelis, but this bunch of hooligans, they were hooting and cheering and carrying on during this silence. Now, you might say, being the sort of people they are, they probably didn't understand. I don't know how the announcement was made about the silence. It could have been made in Dutch. It could have been made in English. but they wouldn't have understood either. So they might not have even known there was supposed to be a silence. But that's not an excuse. I'm just pointing that out. So if the situation had been that they vandalised a taxi and disrupted a memorial silence, that's much to be criticised. But this, and burnt a Palestinian flag in the city. I mean, that's, that's hardly a sin, is it? Really? But the comments under my videos have made much of that. Now, look, if you're a Muslim and you're worried about somebody burning this, then you are probably committing shirk. I'm just warning you, because you're the ones you're the ones who are going to believe you're going to end up in literally hot water for shirk. Shirk, by the way, is a concept in Islam whereby somebody puts something on the same level as God. You're not allowed to do that. So if you think this is more important than God, or if you're making a sort of idol out of this whereby any damage to it is desecration, religious desecration, then that's shirk. In fact, I think the whole Palestine issue is probably shirk, but that's my own theory, and I'm hardly a scholar of Islam. I know something about it, obviously. I went to university and studied it, but that doesn't make me an authority, especially as I'm a woman. Okay, so it says here, tensions had mounted a day earlier when Israeli fans vandalised a taxi and burnt a Palestinian flag. Many details of what happened on Thursday, including the identities and affiliations of those involved in the attack on fans, are still unclear. I think they are pretty clear. The Dutch authorities have released information about WhatsApp or Telegram messages in which people with Arab or Muslim names were talking about getting fireworks in and coordinated ramming attacks and that sort of thing. Dutch officials said attackers had assaulted Israelis. Oh yeah, and they were grabbing people from the street and asking for their ID to find out if they were Jews or Israelis. I mean, by the standards of these people, being Jewish and being Israeli is the same thing, when, as we have learnt, that is not exactly the case, is it? And the Israeli embassy in the Netherlands said that some victims had been kicked or beaten. 5 Israelis were hospitalised with injuries but were later discharged. The police said 20 to 30 people sustained light injuries. So this is the New York Times. I have heard after that there's been more than light injuries sustained. And El Al came in, sent a few planes to take their citizens back. Right, so it says here, street disturbances began Wednesday night, a full day before the match, after Maccabi fans began arriving in Amsterdam. The authorities in Amsterdam said supporters of Maccabi had taken down a Palestinian flag from a building. Shock, horror. A video posted on social media and verified by the New York Times shows men climbing a building to tear down a Palestinian flag. You know, Israeli flags are burnt every Saturday in demonstrations in London alone. They're always burning. Hamas, Palestinian supporters are always burning Israeli flags. I don't notice the New York Times making a fuss about that. And that's because it happens so often. It just becomes boring. But when one group of Israeli football hooligans burn one flag, oh, that's news. Peter Holler, Amsterdam's police chief, said that on Wednesday night, Maccabi fans had burnt a they keep on saying the same thing. Late that night, the police intervened to prevent a potential confrontation between several hundred Maccabi fans inside a casino and a group, including taxi drivers, that the authorities said had gathered after a social media call to mobilise. Apparently, they were using their Uber connections to coordinate the attack. So you see, There is a difference between a group of football hooligans among a bigger group of football fans acting badly and for which they should be criticised, and a coordinated attack by an entire community of a certain ethnic and religious group in the attempt to terrorise all of the football fans, among which were young, kids, families, men and women and children. So, yeah, that wasn't... The Israeli embassy in the Netherlands said that hundreds of Maccabi fans in Amsterdam had been attacked after the game as they made their way back to their hotels. Mobs chanted anti-Israel slogans and proudly shared videos of their violent acts on social media. So chanting anti-Israel slogans, that's your right of free speech in a free nation. Violent acts are not so good. And they, again, just like with the Hamas attacks, they appeared to be very proud of that, and they were filming themselves doing it and then getting all het up because they were being prosecuted for that. This, just a minute, when is the date of this article? Well, this is fairly recent to my video, and it says here they've detained 4 people. I thought they detained more than that. It also says the police deployed 800 officers to try to maintain order during the match, with the police escorting Israeli fans and pro-Palestinian demonstrators in a bid to keep the two sides apart. But I've heard this 800 officers business. I've heard a different figure. I've heard they had 800 officers, but only 200 were actually out on the streets at the time when the real trouble started. So we still don't have full information. I doubt we'll ever get full information. After the match, violence erupted in the city centre. The Dutch police said some people riding scooters had kicked and beaten Israeli fans in hit-and-run attacks, while others pelted them with fireworks. Oh, well, there you are. But again, they say violence erupted. They don't say, well, this is the New York Times, isn't it? They say violence erupted. They don't say a concerted Arab attack on the Israelis started. No, violence erupted sounded like it happened at the behest of both of them. Mobs chanted anti-Israel slogans and proudly shared videos. Okay, I've been through that. Yeah, here it says the police have detained 4 people over the attacks, including a 26-year-old man who was arrested on Friday after police identified him from online footage. Okay, well, that's it. So what happened was that the Arab, and I think there might have been Turks there as well, and they are not Arabs. So let's say the Muslim attacks on Israelis was definitely coordinated, and the excuse they're putting underneath in my in my comments section in the previous video was, well, the Israelis overturned a taxi and set fire to a Palestinian flag. And this reminded me of the Muslim attitude towards people who act in contravention of Muslim rules. And it was this case here, which was first brought to my attention by Maya Tusi, by the way. Jewish citizen is executed in Iran over self-defense fatal stabbing. What it turns out happened was that the young man who was Jewish was set upon by 3 or 4, I don't know the exact circumstances, but by a group of Muslim attackers. I don't know why they were annoyed with him, but whatever. One of the attackers at least had a knife, and during the scuffle, the Jewish man killed one of the Muslims with his own knife. And here we have a religiously sanctioned Muslim rule that is what you might call two-tier justice. Okay, it goes like this, and it works on the principle that the only full members of the human race are Muslims. Anything that is not Muslim, a dhimmi, for instance, a Jew or a Christian, they are a lower rank of human beings, and the law doesn't apply to them in the same way. So, for instance, let's just take laws as they apply to Muslims. If a Muslim steals from another Muslim, then the laws about what punishments are expected for a thief apply. If a Muslim kills another Muslim, then the laws for governing the circumstances of the killing apply. However, if a dhimmi kills a Muslim or steals from a Muslim, all the punishments are ramped up. So, for instance, a dhimmi stealing from a Muslim would probably attract the death penalty rather than the other sorts of punishment for stealing that would apply between Muslims. If a dhimmi kills a Muslim, even in self-defense, there's no question the penalty is death. You see, if two Muslims have a fight and one kills the other in self-defense, then that's self-defense. But if a dhimmi, and in this case a Jew, kills a Muslim, that's a million times worse. Now, the family of the killed man could have accepted blood money instead of the death of this young fellow here, but they didn't. They wanted him dead. And he was executed last week after a 2-year fight. And this is a picture of him. This is apparently a Kurdish publication, by the way. Organised effort to execute Arvin Kharamani, a juvenile Jewish offender. And it was acknowledged, I think it was, according to Maya Tusi, it was acknowledged in court that it was self-defence. Arvin Kharamani, a juvenile offender, imprisoned in Dizelabad prison in Kermanshah, and a member of the Jewish community of Kurdistan, was arrested at the age of 17 on charges of murder and subsequently sentenced to death. He is currently under significant pressure for the execution of his sentence, and that sentence was carried out last week. And why am I talking about that? I'm talking about that because of this. You see, when a Muslim burns a flag that's perceived as a dhimmi flag, the second rank down, that's okay. But if a dhimmi burns a flag that's perceived as a Muslim symbol, like some Muslims believe this is, then that's worthy of the death penalty. Do you see the attitude? And that's why I'm getting these comments under my videos saying, they burnt a Palestinian flag. Well, just to finish off with, hang on, going to be a cut while I set myself up. I had to get it in the, oh dear, you know what I forgot? I forgot my puppy, and I mustn't forget that. You know why I never forget it? Because this is the only thing I know of my uncle, my father's older brother, who was killed on active service in North Africa during World War II. He was an engineer, I believe. Anyway, that's all I know about my father's older brother, really, apart from his name. So, yeah, I always wear this. I feel it brings me closer. And he died for the freedom of the British to do this. So, yeah. Okay, let's see how this works. Right, so I can get hold of it. Okay, everyone, let's see how well this works. Oh, okay, there you are. I've burnt a Palestinian flag. Suck that up, you guys making the comments underneath. But come here and make the comments anyway, because the numbers are just wonderful. Okay, till next time, you can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.